Ready? Okay, very good. Welcome everyone this afternoon. Would like to ask for a roll call, please, from Sarah Viviano.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Connor. Boys.
Aye.
Hannah.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. Hearing none, it will then pass. We have 5 items that's up for a public hearing. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are now back from our August recess. The procedures will be, if I recollect them correctly, it's been a while. What we'll do is we'll receive a report from our planning department. After that, we'll then ask that anyone who wishes to testify before the committee, they stand and be sworn in by our clerk of council, Sarah Viviano. After that, we'll open up the public hearing, ask for comments, either in favor, against, or just questions. We'll then close the public hearing, and then we'll repeat that process this evening at 5 o'clock, in which you're welcome back. The only difference between then and now is that this committee will make a recommendation to all of council, either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time. So those are the procedures that we take. So thank you all for coming down this afternoon. Certainly appreciate that. The first item that's up for a public hearing, we will ask Sarah Viviano to read in, please.
The first item up for public hearing is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to vary the parking requirement at 360 to 454 East Waterloo Road and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. South Plaza Associates LLC is requesting a variance of the retail business parking regulations from 1 parking space per 200 square feet of retail floor area to 1 parking space per 250 square feet of retail floor area. South Plaza consists of 16 adjacent retail stores set toward the back of the property, with 4 detached retail buildings spaced out along the front of the property on outlots. Between the buildings is a parking area containing 883 parking spaces. The petitioner desires to construct a new restaurant in the place of a smaller building at the northwest corner of the property on an outlot. In addition, they are planning for the growth of future retail stores within the plaza. As such, the plaza may not be able to conform to the 1 parking space per 200 square feet requirement in the future, and the petitioner is seeking to reduce the requirement to 1 parking space per 250 square feet of retail floor area. This standard has been adopted by many communities around the country as there's become less of a demand for parking and cities are promoting more walkable communities. A 1 space per 250 square feet standard will allow them to grow and add additional retail space in the future. The existing curb cuts and driveways for access to the plaza will remain. The petitioner states that on a daily basis, only about half of the available parking is utilized. Goals of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan include promoting good design standards for parking areas which can allow for businesses to expand their facilities. South Plaza has recently shown their commitment to this neighborhood by constructing new outlot businesses and planning for future investment and growth. South Plaza has been a viable retail center within the city. It is important that they are able to update and modernize the plaza, continue to attract new businesses. The reduction from the current parking code requirements should not create overcrowding or congestion, and will allow the plaza to create additional retail space to attract more tenants in the future without having to remove open landscaped areas to provide unnecessary parking. And planning staff and planning commission recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Ms. Biviano, could you please swear in any individuals who wish to testify before the committee?
If you're here to provide testimony for this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Just for this one, we'll swear in for each individual public hearing. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do."
I do.
Thank you. You may approach the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Biviano. We'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone who wishes to testify before the committee. If you could please provide for us your name and address. Thank you.
Sure. Chase Darling. My address is 7590 Trails End, Chagrin Falls, Ohio, 44023. Good afternoon. So as I said, I'm president for leasing and development of LRC Realty. I'm just here to really answer anybody's questions that they might have, and obviously happy to shed some light on what some of the new development projects that we're talking about here. I just can't give actual names based on confidentiality, but
That's fair. Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor or against this proposal on Waterloo Road at 360 to 454? Anyone else with any comments or questions? Anyone? Very good. Is there? Oh, I'd like to close the public hearing first. Okay, thank you. Anyone else with any comments or questions? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll now close the public hearing portion and open up to any committee members who may have questions or comments.
That would be me, sorry.
Sharon Connor, yes.
I just want to make sure that this change in parking doesn't affect any of the ADA handicap accessible parking spots, because quite often now, they're very narrow, and using a lift in my car, quite often I have to wait for people to come out of the store because they're so tight. So I just want to make sure this isn't going to affect any of those.
no, to answer your question, it's not going to affect any of the ADA requirements, and everything will still be per code, other than the variance for the parking count.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from any committee members and/or council members? Any questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, we'll welcome you back this evening at 5 o'clock, in which there'll be an additional public hearing. You're invited back if you'd like to testify at that time. Afterwards, of course, as I mentioned, the committee will make a recommendation to all of council. Thanks for coming by this afternoon. Thank you. The second item, if you could please read that in, Ms. Biviano. Thank you.
The second item up for public hearing is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a solid wooden fence beyond the building line at 2016 Kramer Avenue.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Andre Martin is requesting permission to construct a solid wooden fence up to the Acres Avenue right-of-way. The 6-foot-in-height solid wooden fence would extend from the southwest corner of the dwelling to the Acres Avenue right-of-way, then run south to the rear property line, then east, and then north to connect with the southwest corner of the detached garage. The fence will enclose the eastern portion of the rear yard of this corner lot, and the petitioner has stated that the fence is needed to provide privacy and security from activity along Acres Avenue. This section of Acres Avenue does not contain any curb cuts or drives along its eastern side. The traffic engineer's office noted that there were no site visibility issues caused by the proposed location of the fence. The planning staff is of the opinion that the proposed fence will not be detrimental to this neighborhood, and both planning staff and planning commission recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, we'll ask if anyone wishes to testify before the committee, if they could please be sworn in by Sarah Biviano, our clerk of council.
If you're here to provide testimony for this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? The petitioner did sign up to join us online, but has not joined the meeting yet, Mr. Chair.
I gathered that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Very good. Pursuant to our rules, we will, however, open up the public hearing and ask for any comments. Any comments? Anyone? We'll close the public hearing portion and open up to any council committee members who may have questions, or any council members who may have questions referencing the Kramer proposal. Okay, hearing none, we'll now move on to item number 3, Ms. Biviano.
Item number 3 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an office, storage, and meeting room addition at 403 Canton Road and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. The Charles and Salome Raymond Foundation are requesting permission to convert their existing garages and barn structures to offices, meeting rooms, and storage, and to construct a 5-stall parking area on the property. Petitioner seeks to repurpose the 3-bay garage structure with attached 2-story barn, which is currently used for storage for their headquarters. The structure, with a footprint of roughly 1,100 square feet, would feature a conference room, private office with file storage, ADA-compliant restroom, a small meeting area, coat closet, storage room, kitchenette, and memorabilia room. Petitioners state that the architecture and outside appearance of the repurposed facilities will be consistent and complementary to that of the historic Raymond home. Materials of brick, wood, and stucco will be used to restore the turn-of-the-century European look of that the property embodies. New doors and windows will be added to the exterior of the building, as well as a small wall sign depicting the Raymond Foundation. There will be no increase in the square footage of the building. Additionally, 4 new hard surface paved parking spaces plus 1 ADA-compliant parking space would be added along the east side of the existing parking area. The Charles and Salome Raymond Foundation's mission is to improve the lives of individuals with developmental disabilities in Northeast Ohio. The residential part of the property is leased out to Community Support Services, Inc., for use in housing men with mental health issues as they transition back into the community. No increase in the number of residences contemplated with this addition. The Raymond Foundation is an all-volunteer organization, therefore, no additional staff will be on the property on a regular basis. Board meetings are held in the evenings, and if any additional parking is ever needed, St. Matthew's Parish has agreed to allow parking on their lot across the street. Goals of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan are to preserve and protect single-family neighborhoods while providing a range of housing alternatives for all. The proposed repurposing of the garage and barn and additional parking on the property should not be intrusive to the neighboring properties, as the building and grounds appearance will remain largely unchanged. The proposal represents a significant investment in this long-standing, vital, and historic institution in this neighborhood, and both the planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this point, I'd like to ask Sarah Viviano to please swear in any individuals that wish to testify before the committee.
If you're here to testify for this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do." Thank you. You may approach the podium.
We'll open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to testify before the committee. Please introduce yourself and your address.
Hi, I am Margaret Raymond Skinner. My address is 115 Johnson Road, Kent, Ohio 44240. I am here representing the Charles and Salome Raymond Foundation and here to answer any questions that Mr. Antonucci might not have presented.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else with any comments referencing the proposed office and storage meeting room addition at 403 Canton Road? Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Ask if there's any questions from any committee members and/or council members. Mr. McKittrick.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just want to go on record. I am totally backing this addition onto this property. They graciously had me over, explained everything, showed the prints to it. This is truly a historical building, and I don't think anybody in the neighborhood would complain about this whatsoever. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKittrick, for that comment. Very good. I'd like to ask for a motion that we rehear the previous item at, I'd like to invite you back this evening at 5 o'clock. And the committee, we will then make a recommendation to all of council. Thanks for coming. Yes, same room, 5 o'clock. Thanks for coming. I'd like to entertain a motion that we rehear 2016 Kramer. The petitioner, I believe, is on the line, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Just to reopen that particular one so we can hear from the petitioner on that. I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's very good. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Sarah Biviano, could you please reread that in?
Sure. This is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a solid wooden fence beyond the building line at 2016 Kramer Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. We've already heard the report from Mr. Antonucci. So with that, I'm just going to request that we reopen the public hearing portion and ask if there's anyone who wishes to testify before the committee, be sworn in by our clerk, Sarah Biviano.
Yes, the petitioner, Andre Martin, has signed up and joined us. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. I think you're on mute.
I do.
Thank you so much. You can provide testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Biviano. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone wishing to testify either against this proposal on Kramer Avenue, 2016. Mr. Martin?
Hi. Yes, I just want to put a fence up on my backyard. I don't want to bring it all the way to the front of my house. I just want to keep it kind of to the back end of my home and keep my backyard enclosed.
Very good. Thank you. Could you please provide for us, I failed to ask for your name and address.
Oh, sorry. My name is Andre Martin, and I live at 2016 Kramer Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44312.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or against? Very good. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Any questions or comments from anyone on the committee and/or council? Questions or comments? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Martin. We'll invite you back this evening at 5 o'clock, in which we'll have an additional public hearing. Afterwards, the committee will make a recommendation to all of council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. The next item, I believe, is item number 4. Could you please read that in, Ms. Biviano?
Sure. Item number 4 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish dual-use dispensing of marijuana at 737 East North Street and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. 127OH LLC, doing business as Bloom Cannabis LLC, is asking permission to include dual-use marijuana sales to their existing medical marijuana dispensary. Bloom Cannabis currently operates a medical marijuana dispensary in its 3,500 square foot, one-story brick building. They have been proactively hiring additional staff since Ohio voters approved adult-use recreational cannabis sales in November of '23. It's estimated that roughly 21,000 transactions will be processed monthly. However, the current client processing experience will not change. Patients and customers will enter through a high-security door into a waiting room. Access will be remote controlled by a licensed dispensary employee. Once inside, the patient or customer will be greeted by a staff member who will assist with, if desired, product education and consultation. The building will be under constant video surveillance with additional security measures, including card access control doors, panic alarm devices, and interior motion activated sensors. The petitioners noted that only a few modifications are necessary for the building to handle the increase in clients. The petitioners state that the dual-use license will create 40 full and part-time jobs that will generate an estimated annual payroll of $1.5 million in salaries per year. The dispensary will operate 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. The current building with 14 abutting parking spaces is located south of a bend of the Little Cuyahoga River. The parking area on the east side of the river will be slightly expanded to provide space for 40 additional vehicles. Overall, there will be 72 total off-street parking spaces. A proposed pedestrian access bridge over the Little Cuyahoga River will link the parking areas. In accordance with riparian setback ordinance requirements, the Board of Zoning Appeals approved the bridge and parking expansion on August 28th. The current medical marijuana dispensary has successfully been in operation since 2018, and the zoning office has not received any complaints regarding the use. The petitioners recently secured a license by the state of Ohio to provide dual-use sales of marijuana and has demonstrated the ability to handle the increase. The amount of off-street parking exceeds code requirements. The use of this property has not had a negative impact on the surrounding community, and both the planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci, for that report. I'd like to ask Ms. Biviano to please swear in any individuals who wish to testify.
If you're here to provide testimony for this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do." Thank you. You may approach the podium.
Thank you. We'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to testify. If so, please provide first your name and address. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephen Funk. I'm an attorney at Retzel and Andrus, 222 South Main Street, Akron, Ohio, 44308. I represent 127OH LLC, doing business as Bloom Cannabis. I really have nothing more to add to the staff report. I think they did an excellent job of summarizing all of the relevant facts. I just wanted to note that since the recreational use was approved by the voters, a number of state regulations have been adopted that essentially creates a preference for existing medical dispensaries to convert to dual use dispensaries, which is exactly what we're doing here. Bloom, and I forgot to introduce Andrew Wagner is from Bloom. He's here if you have any questions, but we've been in Akron since 2018 with the existing dispensary at this location, and it has worked very well. No complaints, no incidents. So we're wanting to keep, we've got a demonstrated track record that I think will make us a good candidate for the dual use dispensary. So with that, we have here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make any testimony before the committee? Anyone whatsoever? Okay, very good. Not hearing anyone. At this point, we'll open up the questions from the committee members. Okay, well, I saw you first, Tina Boyes, so we'll ask you first.
Thank you,
Then
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hanna.
My question is related more to the parking. It looks like you're expanding parking, which is great. Love the bridge. I don't see anything written in here about lighting as it relates to the parking area. And just with, the recreational component has some different connotations, and it's separated from the buildings. There's not as many eyes on it. Just curious what you plan to do in terms of keeping that well lit and visible.
Okay, we'll let Andrew Wagner answer that.
Hi, Andrew Wagner, Communications Director for Bloom Medicinals, or Bloom Cannabis now. The address is 129 Northwest 13th Street, Suite 26, Boca Raton, Florida, 33432. And thank you for your question. So currently in the existing lot across the river, there are utility poles that we've installed high security surveillance lights on. As we push the parking back even further, we're going to add more lighting features as well as install additional cameras that will surveil the property 24/7. And in terms of the pedestrian bridge, we'll obviously be adding lights to that as well as additional cameras.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many minorities do you have working in your business at present?
I do not have the exact information on that. That is something I could pull for this evening's. But we are an equal opportunity employer, and we do pride ourselves on hiring within a 30-minute range of the dispensary, but I do not have the exact information on that.
Okay. You say you're going to create 44 to 46 new jobs?
40 full and part-time jobs.
Okay. Well, I would hope that you would be able to hire some minorities, because that area was at one time just minorities. As you know, you're close to a North Street area, and so I would hope that you would hire some minorities at your business.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, I know for a fact that we do employ a large amount of minorities around the state at all of our locations. Minorities also including women in high-ranking positions, such as our regional operations director. I just do not have the exact tally for the Akron location.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from any committee members and/or council members? Anyone? Not hearing anyone, of course, we'll invite you back this evening at 5 o'clock, in which the committee will make a recommendation.
Okay,
Thank you
for stopping by this afternoon. Very good. We'll now move on to item number 5. Sarah Biviano.
Number 5 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an apartment development at 40 North Martha Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Kelly APS LLC and ICP Akron Kelly LLC are requesting permission to construct an apartment development on the site of the former Goodyear Middle School. The government use district, UG classification, restricts residential uses by right. Petitioner proposes to raise the former 3 to 4 story Goodyear Middle School building and replace it with a 160-unit affordable housing development to be known as The Heights. The new 163,000 square foot 4-story apartment building will sit on a prominent site overlooking East Market Street, Kelly Avenue, and Mary Street. The new building will be oriented around a pair of outdoor courtyards that feature a children's playground and community garden. The building will have a main entrance with stairs and an ADA accessible ramp that faces north towards Mary Street, allowing residents to easily walk to the nearby retail amenities at the east end, as well as the Goodyear Branch Library and the number 23 Metro RTA bus line on Goodyear Boulevard. The secondary south entrance will provide access to the building from the parking lot. The building will have 160 parking spaces and secure indoor bicycle parking. Exterior building materials include brick veneer with projecting brick window surrounds and cornices on approximately 30% of the street-facing elevations. The balance of the facades will be clad in cement board siding panels with similar projecting window and cornice trim. The project will feature solar panels on the flat roof and is intended to achieve a U.S. Green Building Council LEED Silver certification. A goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to promote a variety of new housing types and price ranges to meet the requirements and desires of the city's population. The petitioner states that they have a commitment to provide affordable housing at an income mix per Ohio Housing Finance Agency guidelines, subject to market study results. The affordable units would help meet the demand for much-needed workforce housing. The proposed apartment use is appropriate and consistent with surrounding uses. The attractive and accessible development is located just east of the successful live, work, play, mixed-use redevelopment of the former, known as the East End, providing opportunities for employment, recreation, and neighborhood services. Both the planning staff and planning commission recommend approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, I'd like to ask Sarah Viviano to please swear in any individuals that wish to testify before the committee.
If you're here to provide testimony for this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you. You may approach the podium.
Thank you. We'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone wishing to testify to please provide first your name and address.
Michelle Kiernan, I'm with IRG Realty Advisors as agent for Kelly APS and ICP Kelly Akron with an address of 1200 East Market Street in Akron, Ohio. I don't have anything else to add to the nice summary except to say that in addition to workforce housing, our affordable housing is also open to senior citizens. And other than that, I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Thanks. Anyone else wishing to testify before the committee? Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else here wishing to testify before the committee referencing the proposed conditional use for apartment development at 40 North Martha? Anyone else? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing portion and ask if there's any questions or comments from any committee members at this time. Sharon Connor, I was betting you would have a question or comment.
Just a comment. I want to say I'm all in favor of this. Goodyear's been closed for a number of years. It'll be nice to see something developed, especially housing, when we all know that housing is such an important problem in the city, especially affordable housing. I really like the idea of having a place for seniors too. We have a number of seniors who wish to stay in the neighborhood, but their home isn't working for them. So the ability to have them in these apartments where they can stay where they want to be is wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Hanna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lately, I've been hearing a lot about affordable housing. I'd like to ask, what is the price range that you have for affordable housing in that area? I think it's a great project, but you mentioned affordable housing. What's the price range?
So it's based on the Ohio Housing Authority finance
Ohio Housing Finance Authority guidelines and based on average rental rates in this area and as well as area median income. And so our one-bedrooms have to be between $670 up to $935 a month and as high as $1,500 a month for a three-bedroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tina Boyes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I think this is a great project, first of all. This is a great example of how throughout the city we should be repurposing old schools particularly. We have many in my neighborhood that have either fallen on themselves, had to have been demolished, or are just sitting there waiting for something to happen. And I applaud those who are working on this project. My question was more related to how did this property become owned by its current owner? Was this something that was sold to them by the schools, acquired by the city, then sold to the property owner? How did that work?
So we bought it from someone who bought it at an auction, and I don't recall if it was auctioned off by by APS or by the city.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was APS, but I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think so. Very good, thank you. Further questions or comments from anyone whatsoever? Ms. Moby, and I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, when you talk about affordable housing, are you also making it available to individuals who would be eligible for Section 8 certificates?
We must accept vouchers subject to criminal and background checks.
So they would be eligible for Section 8 if they meet those guidelines?
We don't have to accept everyone with a voucher, but we do have to accept vouchers. If that's
Do you have to accept a percentage?
I'm not sure I follow.
A percentage of your units, would they have to go? You keep throwing out the term affordable housing. What would be, and I guess I'm just curious, I realize what you're saying, the market rate for affordable housing, but that should also make it eligible for those individuals who have certificates. I'm just curious, are there so many units that you would need to have eligible for?
So it's not necessarily by number of units. We have to maintain an average of 60% of area median income, which means for an individual, it's about, I want to say it's about $22,000 a year, up to $80,000 for a family of 5. And so if you can lease as many on either side of that as long as you maintain 60%. So you would never have a scenario where you had 100% vouchers. And so for every 30%, I have to have so many on the other side of 60 to maintain an average. So there's not a set number of how many vouchers I can accept. I have to maintain that average to be compliant with the state's program.
Okay, I don't know if I understand all of that, but certainly it's something for us to keep an eye on as we move forward. Is my understanding you're going to raise the school, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, good answer. I appreciate it. And obviously, there's, due to the OFA funding that's going to help fund this project, that's the guidelines in which you have to operate within.
That's correct, and it's strict adherence and compliance. We have to hire a third-party management company who maintains all of the records to ensure that everyone qualifies for the program. The IRS and the agency itself has ongoing audits. It's not like you're audited within 12 months of completion and they forget about you. It's a 15-year commitment to provide affordable housing here. And so at any given time, they can ask for your records. And whereas that's the developing partners are very adept at market rate programs, that's a whole other level of, record keeping that we don't typically do. So we hire third parties to ensure that we're leasing to only to qualified applicants and making sure that they remain qualified. If someone starts to earn out of that income bracket, we have to lease that unit up to someone who qualifies when their lease is up.
Good, thank you very much for
You're
that
welcome.
explanation. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hanna?
Thank you, Chair. One more question. How was this location chosen? Maybe I missed it because in Ward 5, we have a school that needs to be torn down. If you come in and you can build affordable housing, I'm quite sure the community would appreciate that. How was this location chosen?
We actually purchased the site because it's surrounded on 3 sides by other properties that the developer owns. The Hilton Garden Inn, the old Goodyear facility, and one of the Goodyear research buildings are all owned by us. At that time, at the time of purchase, we were just wrapping up our most recent adaptive reuse project at 1200 East Market Street, and we actually first looked at historic tax credits because it was a gorgeous building and we thought we could do something with it. However, the way that tax credit program works, you have to maintain all visual sight lines, have to look exactly as it did when it was registered as an historic landmark. And it was extremely expensive for us to do, and we couldn't make the floor plates work. There were different levels and split level stairs, and we couldn't build as many units as we would need for it to financially make sense. But our construction partner does a lot of multifamily in different asset classes, both market rate, senior housing, and low-income housing, and thought that the site itself would be advantageous. And we ran a market report. We initially looked at senior housing alone, and found that our competition, we were really competing more with developers who had public assistance, which we did not. In addition, based on just the area's census, we would have had to capture 20% of that age group. And so in separating or reallocating the types of units we were building, we knew that we had a product that we have a very large market. It's actually, we only need to capture, I think it's 1.9% of the need here in order to lease up. And that's the other tricky thing about these tax credits. You have to lease up and be fully occupied within 24 months of completing your project, or you lose your tax credits and you're funding that piece of equity. But it does make sense. I will say that the city of Akron competes with cities like Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus as an urban area. And so when you're applying for this program, you have to achieve, you're trying to get to a score of 40. Akron scores 28, and that's based on what our legislators have deemed is considered urban. On the other side of that, a lot of the funds from this program are going to rural areas. So I would highly encourage you to speak to your legislators to get Akron. They have the ability to change those scoring metrics so that you can get more funds for these programs.
Thank you again for that answer. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, anyone else? Very good. Of course, we'll invite you back this evening at 5 o'clock, in which the committee will make a recommendation. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the balance of the agenda. Going to recommend time short of any questions or comments from anyone. Hearing none, we'll move into the new list of legislation. The first item, Viviano, could you please read in? I see here we have the first three are the public hearings we just had. You still have to read them in, though?
I did read them, so
Okay,
that
good.
covers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. So we'll start with number 5 in the new legislation list.
Perfect.
Item number 5 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place a monument sign with an LED message board for Reservoir Park at 1735 Hillside Terrace and declaring an emergency.
We're going to advertise for public hearing.
Item number 6 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place a monument sign with an LED message board for the Patterson Park Community Center at 800 Patterson Avenue and declaring an emergency.
For and advertise for public hearing.
Item number 7 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place a monument sign with an LED message board for the Ed Davis Community Center at 730 Perkins Park Drive and declaring an emergency.
For and advertise for public hearing.
Item number 8 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to install an oversized high-rise sign at 1526 Vernon Odom Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
For and advertise for public hearing.
Item number 9 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a convenience store and gas station at 311 Darrow Road and declaring an emergency.
For and advertise for public hearing.
And item number 10 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct the Akron Zoo Animal Hospital on the east side of Diagonal Road, north of Ald Farm Road, and declaring an emergency.
For and advertise for public hearing.
Item number 11 is an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a purchase and/or development agreement, City Center Development LLC, or its nominee, providing for the sale and redevelopment of the City Center building located at 146 South High Street, Akron, Ohio 44308, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Volleman is here, I believe, to speak on this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I heard a couple nice segues into this piece of legislation from Councilwoman Boyes and Mrs. Kiernan about both saving, being able to save older buildings and an actual successful application for historic tax credits have come together for the sale and the redevelopment of the City Center building right next door. We did a proposal previous year for the redevelopment of the city center for apartments, and we chose Welty Construction. They also had done the Bowery development, and it was contingent on them getting historic tax credits, which they were able to do at the beginning of this year. So now we are looking to move forward and close on the building. We are selling it for $1 million, which will be paid over a 5-year period at 4% interest. And they're looking to do, I think it's 117 apartments, but they're required under the agreement to do 100, but they're looking to do about 117. And if you have questions specifically about the development itself, you might recognize Katie Breck, who is in the audience, who is now here representing the development team for this project.
Yes, thank you. We had spoke before the meeting. If you'd like to make a couple comments, you're welcome to. If not, that's okay too. But by all means, please introduce yourself. Some of us may know you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Katie Breck. I'm Director of Economic Development with Insight Advisory Group, and I'm here on behalf of Welty Development. And as you know, Welty Development is led by Donzel Taylor and Tom Cherrick. And on behalf of the development team, I just want to say that we're super excited to begin and to work with the city to help you achieve your vision for a 24/7 vibrant neighborhood here in downtown. This represents, as Sean said, 100+ new residential units here, and also more than $34 million in new investment coming into the city. So we're very thankful and grateful to the city for being a partner in this process. Thank you so much, Sean, and your team for bringing us to this very critical milestone in the development, and I just thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. Any questions or comments from anyone? I'm going to recommend that we take time on this so that we can take time to look this over. This is a huge development, very exciting though. I know it's been a spell since we have talked about this, and I don't know how many different proposals we've looked at over the years and different ideas and so on and so forth, but
there's been a couple.
There's been a few.
This one is, Bowery's such a success right now that they have a waiting list for tenants. So,
right.
And my understanding is that these two facilities will share amenities, so the residents of Bowery can take advantage of amenities at the city center and vice versa. So it'll be a nice, combination of the two.
Well, I know on the residential piece here in downtown, it's booming on the residential side, and that the vacancy rates are extremely low, if at all.
Yeah.
So good things are happening, and so this is evident of that. So very good. But I'm going to ask for time.
And the agreement was attached to the
Yes.
legislation. So if you have any questions, please email me or give me a call over the next week. If we could have a vote next week, that would be wonderful, so we can get moving there. And the idea is the due diligence they have through the end of the year to
Yes.
complete due diligence, and then 2 months to close. But we got to get the agreement signed to kick all of that off. So
That's a fair request. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any questions or comments from anyone at this point? Okay, very good. Is there a motion to refer this item? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, the ayes have it. Item number 12, Ms. Viviano.
Item number 12 is an ordinance approving the sale of vacant lot Hazel Street, parcel 6764602, to Hazel Street Properties LLC to reduce the cost to the city and the taxpayers and maintaining the lot and getting the property back on the tax rolls, determining said property is not needed for public use and declaring an emergency.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. So we have a vacant lot on Hazel Street that was acquired some years ago to facilitate some work on the sewer projects and the stormwater projects. That work in that area is over. It's surplus land, and we would like to, with council's permission, sell it to the adjoining business to reduce our overhead costs in that regard.
0.35 acres. It's 0.35 acres?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Questions or comments from any committee members? Consent agenda okay? If there's no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion for consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good, hearing none. Item number 13, Ms. Viviano.
Item number 13 is an ordinance approving the sale of 492 vacant lot Corber Avenue, parcel number 6857540 and 6806064 to Bobby Z Construction LLC pursuant to the city's Welcome Home Akron program, and in order to facilitate the construction of new residential homes on unused and underutilized property in long-established neighborhoods, and to reduce the cost to the city and the taxpayers in maintaining vacant lots, determining said property is not needed for public use, and declaring an emergency.
So this would be an infill lot off of Manchester Road, an opportunity for a builder to construct a new house that would be offered for sale.
Cool, thank you, Mr. Julian. Questions or comments? Ms. Boyes?
Thank you. This property happens to be my ward, and I've checked out this gentleman's other properties, and they're actually very nice, and I'm excited to see infill housing happening in Ward 9, so thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a motion for is the consent agenda okay?
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Item number 14.
Item number 14 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with Stowe BMX Association to extend the term of their bicycle motocross facility lease at the Akron Fulton Airport and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Susie Graham-Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This legislation provides an extension of a lease agreement to Stowe BMX, doing business as Akron BMX, for their location at the Akron Fulton Airport, or just off of the Akron Fulton Airport. They're a 501c3 parents association, and they've been in place since 1985. They activate the space 6 months of the year, activating the space about 3 times a week, and each time there's about 135 riders that come to that space. So we're excited to continue this partnership. They bring folks in from Summit, Stark, and Tuscarawas counties, and they are one of the top tracks in Ohio for both audience and use numbers. They have an audience of all ages between 2 and 75 years old, and they have a primary audience of 8 to 13-year-olds, and also work with individuals with special needs as part of their programming component. The extension of the lease would go through 2026.
Thank you. And they go to Strickland's after?
Absolutely.
Questions or comments? Thank you. Tina Boyes?
Thank you very much. Was curious, so was this parcel part of the potential sale that was being discussed a while back, and where does that stand?
Yes, so there is a user that had entertained, a manufacturing and an industrial user that had entertained a larger parcel. And right now, they're not at a point where they would make that larger commitment to the city. So that allows for this 2-year extension for them to reevaluate their intentions.
Gotcha. I assume that would apply to the Akron Skate Park property as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Nothing? Consent agenda, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. All those in favor of consent, or is there a motion? Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? You guys have it. Okay, 15.
Number 15 is an ordinance ratifying the actions of the Director of Public Service in contracting with Cardinal Group for emergency services to secure 1200 Firestone Parkway, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Here for this one, I just.
Yes.
Mr. Vole.
So in past years, we generally have a purchase order for about $40,000 that we use to secure vacant buildings in the city of Akron. And that's been enough over time. Based on the previously well-known Word Church and the 1200 Firestone building, we hit that number pretty much right before council went on break. So we're in the process of bidding out a new contract for commercial services, commercial board-up services. However, in the interim, we couldn't leave 1200 Firestone open and unsecure. So we continued to use Cardinal, who had the PO for the under $50,000 and to do that work. And this would be, we have a invoice for about $16,000 right now for work that they've done. This would also allow them to address any emergencies until the point when we get through the bidding for the new contract for 1200. So we're asking for up to $35,000 to keep this building secure.
It happens. Understandable. Questions, comments? I assume we're going to want this done fairly quickly.
Since they are, they've been patient with the outstanding invoice, so if we could suspend the rules, that would be great.
Is there a motion for suspension of the rules? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Very good, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
With that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Our next committee today will be the Rules Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Those committee members are McKittrick, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Davis. Again, that's the Rules Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Our next committee of the day is the Rules Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Davis. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Could I get I'd like to call the Rules Committee to order. Could I get a motion to accept our previous minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We have a resolution coming before us acknowledging that the petition submitted on August 28, 2024 is insufficient and does not comply with the requirements of the Charter of the City of Akron and the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio and declaring an emergency. Do we have President Somerville available?
Mr. Chair, I am available.
Okay.
I don't have any comment at this time regarding it, though.
Okay, all right, thank you. Are there any other committee members that have any comments in regard to this? Mr. Fusco?
Yes, thank you. How does it work, just to refresh our memory, in terms of, so we have legislation, because typically we'll get if there's an adequate amount, we'll get legislation after the signatures. Is that right? Is that what typically happens? And that's to put it on the ballot, and we have to vote on that. We have to approve that. We were told that we have to say yes regardless of our sentiment in reference to the charter change itself. Is that right?
If I understand your question correctly,
Yeah.
yes. If the petition had been sufficient,
If it was
there would have been
successful.
legislation similar to this saying it's sufficient.
I think it's important for especially with some newer people here, to understand that.
Yes, Councilman. So the language that reads that ordinance shall be passed forthwith, meaning immediately. So there isn't discretion with the body at that point. Once the petitions are sufficient, there's a sufficient number, you have the duty to certify that to the Board of Elections. So it's non-discretionary at that point. Now, to your point about it not being sufficient, there's nothing that would require you to vote on that. It's determined by the clerk. And that's per our charter, section 22.
Okay, so in this particular case here, it's perfunctory that we approve this. Is that right?
No, I don't think the legislation is even necessary. I think this is more of a resolution acknowledgement as opposed to any type of ordinance. Yeah.
Good. Well, I think it's prudent, not a bad idea to acknowledge it. Do we also have the petitioners, those that petition the city of Akron to change our charter? Do we have the names of those individuals, the petitioners? Do we have that?
I do have the original petitions here on file in the office. I can certainly send you a copy.
Okay, thank you. Maybe all the committee, all council members, make sure that that's available to everyone. I think that'd be prudent.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Are there any other committee members or other council members that have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman Amobian?
I'm sorry, I can't seem to find my raised hand fast enough. So thank you for acknowledging me. The actual document that includes the name of the petitioners it's part of the resolution that you have before you. It's like the third page.
You're referring to the petition committee?
Yeah, those are the petitioners on the document as well.
Is that what you were asking for, Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Councilwoman. So Clerk Viviano, so we still would need to bring this out of committee and go forward with this, correct?
Correct. The committee should still make a motion and vote on it and then bring it to council this evening.
If there's no other comments, I'm sorry, did you have a question, Councilwoman?
Yeah, what are we voting on? It seems to me that we're just acknowledging that the petitions were insufficient.
Yes, that's correct.
To accept the resolution.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Angeloni, that is correct or not correct?
You would need to, the extent that you're going to pass the resolution, yes, you would need to vote on a committee and then take it to council.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, could I get a motion for suspension of the rules with a
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We will get that before council this evening then. If there's nothing further to come before Rules Committee, we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Bolden, and Lombardo. If we can have just a moment here. Okay, we do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'd like to call the public service meeting to order, please. We do have minutes to approve from our last meeting before we went on recess, please. Can I get approval of those minutes?
Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Anybody? All right, thank you. All right, moving forward, we do have two new pieces in front of us today. And Sarah, since you're in council chambers, could you read in the two pieces, please?
Sure. Item number 16 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of a new bucket truck from UTE, Utility Truck Equipment, for operations of the Office of Information Technology and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. And I do see we have our service director, Chris Luddle, with us today. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee. Yes, this legislation will allow us to purchase a new cable placer utility truck for IT and communications. We currently have two cable placer utility trucks, and they're both over 20 years old. They break down very frequently and are out of service, which means we have to use our large bucket truck on residential streets, which is not an easy task, especially with trees and cars and that as such. So Motor Equipment worked with IT and communication to spec out this new truck and the equipment that would be required for us to purchase this truck. It's obviously a smaller truck, works very well in our residential neighborhoods. For example, we would use it on something like the South Camera project that we just completed with Summit County, University of Akron, and Fairlawn Gig. UTE, which is Utility Truck Equipment, they're an Ohio company. We have tested this truck, and it's exactly what they are looking for. We can take delivery of this truck within 60 days, which all the other companies at Motor Equipment spec'd out and contacted for pricing were more than a year before we could take delivery. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? Any other council members that are online with us? All right. Chris, what are you looking to do with this piece of legislation?
Consent's fine, sir.
All right. Committee?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you. We'll put that on the consent agenda. Sarah, could you read in the second piece?
Item number 17 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract and/or amend or modify its existing contract with USG Water Solutions for professional engineering services related to city-owned water storage tanks and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. In 2021, we signed a 20-year agreement with this company, USG, to inspect and do all the repairs at our water tanks. They have gone through all our tanks and made those critical repairs to those tanks, as far as the minor repairs, I should say. Two of the repairs they found in this past 3 years were up at our Talmadge tanks up off of Lungstone. One of the tanks, the roof was caving in. Once they got in there, the structural repairs, they had to put a new roof on. The other low boy up there, once they drained the tank, they had to put a floor in it. So this tank at Montrose is 170 feet tall, and there's a 6-inch riser pipe on the inside. So as it needs to fill, when the pumps kick on, it pumps the water up through the top, up through this riser, and then it discharges out of the top, and then it fills the tank. This is for water quality and to keep the water moving. Well, when they drained the tank to inspect the inside, they found numerous holes in this riser pipe, which needs replaced. If it does fail, it would limit us unable to fill this tank. So this legislation will allow us to replace the existing 6-inch Schedule 40 water line. It's going to be all welded joints, and then it would replace the existing one to put this back in service. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you, Chris. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? Any other council members in chambers or online? Okay, seeing none. Chris, what are your wishes on this one?
Consent's fine.
All right, thank you. Committee?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, well, thank you, and thank you, Chris, for that. We'll put that on consent agenda, and I'd like to welcome our new council member to public service, Councilman Bolden, so welcome.
Thanks.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks.
Our next committee of the day will be the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and it will begin at 3:30. Those committee members are Fusco, McKittrick, Connor, Garrett, and DeShazier. Again, that's the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and it will begin at 3:30. Thank you.